What's up, everyone? It is BigPowner, and we finally, as of today, have got, I think, all of the patch notes finally. Yesterday we got the like main manifesto, but they didn't include all the new skill gems, so that's not really a completed manifesto. So less than 2 days out from the launch, we finally have all of the stuff as far as changes, stuff that we're gonna know. So this is basically going to be my breakdown on the patch notes, the stuff that you should note that's not like build specific, because lots of people are going to be picking a lot of different builds. I'll kind of talk about what it is that I'm interested in and stuff like that. Honestly, I still haven't decided. I'm kind of torn on that. One of the things that I really don't like about them releasing stuff right at the last minute is it's kind of like you learn and then you're like, all right, well, now I can finally decide because I have all the information I'm going to get. Um, I really liked the older method. I don't know why they decided to switch it last league and keep it this way. I don't know if they're trying to build suspense, but really all they're doing is just kind of screwing people that are trying to plan out their season start. Anyways, let's jump right into it. One of the biggest things that I've noticed, or one of the biggest things that I always take note of, are Xana mods. Let's talk about the Xana mods. We've got some really good Xana mods on here. Delirium, I called it last league that it would be on that Atlas, on the Xana this league. Um, 16 Chaos Orbs sounds like a lot, but Delirium is really rewarding. This will be my goal to farm to. Obviously, we need a lot of completion to get these higher ones. First, I'm going to go for Blight, and then with the currency generated from Blight, I will get into Delirium. Have a Delirium ready build to speed clear Delirium. So this is one of the factors in choosing a build. If you plan to play Delirium, obviously you're going to need a build that can move through Delirium fast enough. If you didn't play Delirium or you're a little bit um, rusty on the mechanic, uh, it's going to be the same mechanic where you enter the mirror and then you have delirium. So you're really only going to want to be adding this on maps where you can fully complete the delirium, like maps that turn back and stuff like that, or like go off into corners. You're not going to be wanting it to invest 16 chaos in this. One thing that I will say is, since we do have some really expensive Xana mods available. Fortune Favors the Brave is something I'm going to start pumping once I get to red maps, because it's going to give me chances for, an 8 Chaos map or 16 Chaos map. Um, that is just going to be really valuable until I get to the point where I can actually just run Delirium every single map. So that's something that's good to note. It's nice that we have some really good mods on here. We got Nemesis. Obviously, that's going to make it easier for us to get more headhunters into the league. So headhunters should be more accessible this league, kind of like last league. Um, we have Blight. Obviously, that's good. A lot of people really like the Blight. I really like the Blight, especially early league, because these are Blight maps are really good currency. Beyond being on here is great also, because kind of like one of the best combinations is the Nemesis and Beyond. So being able to add Nemesis or Beyond makes it so that juicing up maps is going to be really nice. If we're like, for once we play, like, start playing Delirium maps, because obviously if we can afford to put the Delirium on there, if we're not playing Delirium maps, we're going to want to put the Delirium on there. But end game, once you're adding Delirium to maps, you're going to want other good mods to throw in there. Blight is going to be another good one because that adds a lot of quantity to the map, but obviously for other reasons, like Beyond just adds a lot of extra monsters. That's really good. And obviously Nemesis for chances for the Headhunter is another really good thing to have on there. Also, Nemesis monsters drop additional currency. That is another thing that makes that a really good mod to have on there. All right, so we've gotten through that. The main things that are the biggest things to note are going to be, first of all, probably the biggest categorical change is going to be to our curses, which now are no longer just curses. They're curses, marks, and let's find the section. Curses, marks, and hexes. Is this the... Okay. No, it's gem balance. Yeah, let's find... Okay, here we go. So, in general, the curses that turn to marks now, they took debuffs. The biggest one for me to note, because it's good in so many builds, was Assassin's Mark. Like there are other marks now that took nerfs. Probably not as big as the Assassin's Mark, because you're talking about reduction in percent damage added from the quality and stuff like that on some of the mark on like the what used to be projectile damage. So that sucks. But that's not as big of a damage difference as the Assassin's Mark. I keep on going over it. Oh, all right, here we go. Assassin's Mark. So this is the one that took the biggest nerf, and the reason why is because we lost base crit at all gem levels. It's 1.5. That sucks because the Assassin's Mark used to add much more. Um, we also have enemies afflicted with the Assassin Mark will grant no longer cause cursed enemies to take increased extra damage from critical strikes. This is a really big deal. Um, that's a mega nerf. They added a multiplier 30% to 49%. This is still going to be a really big loss. We lost base crit and that multiplier of the extra damage. So this got nerfed pretty hard. It's still really good. You're talking about 1.5% base crit, and it does add the multiplier and life. You still get life and mana. So it's not as good as it was, but it's still good. But that's just something to note. The major changes to the curse and the reclassification is because of the new skills that they're setting up, which we'll go and pull those up. I like the idea behind it. Like, honestly, I don't like the idea behind the league itself. Are there probably gonna be some cool items and stuff that I'm gonna get stoked about? Yes, but I don't like the idea for the mechanic. I think it's really a lazy choice, and I think it doesn't fit PoE at all. Like, let's be real. We had Conquerors, we had Legion, we had Blight, we had, just recently Harvest, we had Delirium, we had all these, like, they kind of follow like a theme, like we're chasing down evil, and it started with the big thing was chasing down the Shaper, and you're traveling through worlds and all of this stuff. And to have a league where it's like we're gonna go rob some people, or like I don't know, not something that I'm like, oh yay, that sounds cool. Like, all right, we're gonna go rob people. I'm supposed to be super excited about this. This is like a fantasy game, and the best fantasy you can come up with is let's go rob some people. I kind of feel like maybe this is because they're about to be releasing in the next set of patches PoE 2, and maybe it was kind of like an afterthought, like they're like, we got to do something. I don't know, but kind of disappointed, and that doesn't happen very much. The saving grace for me and for a lot of players that I've talked to that kind of feel the same way about the League mechanic is that they have some really cool skills that they've added. They've also done some visual changes which look really cool. Plus we have Delirium on the Atlas, which I'm stoked about. Like the whole like last half of my of this last season, I pretty much just played 100% Delirium map. So having Delirium on there, that's kind of like the end game. That's what they planned it to be. So I'm excited to play with the new skills, make some new builds, and do 100% Delirium maps with those builds. That's something I'm looking forward to. So even if I don't like the heist mechanic, I'm still gonna play. I just probably won't play the heist mechanic very much after the beginning of the league. Um, I'm not completely ruling it out as being something that's fun. Maybe I'll get into it and it will be really fun. Maybe I'll be like, oh, this is fun. But kind of everything about it, I'm kind of like, this isn't PoE. Like sneak around, avoid fights. Like, I'm sorry, but that's not what this game is. This game is not that. And for like players that are used to playing it, it's kind of like what are we doing? It's normally like this type of game is basically like let's hunt stuff down, kill stuff, take out tons of enemies, mutant creatures, evil stuff, and now it's like sneak around, don't get caught, steal stuff. Like, it, I don't know. It, I hope that they don't have more leagues where they go in these types of directions. But like I said, saving grace, they have some really cool skills that I'm stoked about. And like I said, I do like that I like the idea of them having like the experimental items that are basically going to be like rares with special implicits and stuff like that. Like that sounds cool. Like I like that idea. And you guys know, if you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, that I really like creating items and stuff like that. So that aspect of it, the addition of items, I think is cool. I think that the addition of uniques is something like modified uniques. I think that that's a cool idea. Um, I'm not going to cover too much into that other than I think that it's cool that there's going to be some variety being added both to skill gems and already existing items. Um, but I'm not going to focus on that because the truth is we don't know how accessible those items are going to be because they are attached to the league mechanic. We could be talking about like a lot of these items are basically next to impossible to get for the mass majority of players, which if that's the case, it's not going to be something that I'm going to focus on because I try to create content for the 99%, not the 1%. The 1% are not the people that these videos are created for. Some of the 1% enjoy these videos, but that's not like what I'm targeting for because then most people that watch it are going to benefit from it. So what I'm going to cover is the skills I think are really cool and what I think about their addition. Obviously, like I said, the changes to curses are really based around the Hex Blast and the Impending Doom support. So I really like this, and the reason why is because I felt like the Chaos skill set has been kind of weak. It was really popular like six or seven leagues ago, and then they kind of just like nerfed and nerfed and nerfed it to the point where the Chaos really became like a kind of like a specialty sector. Yeah, every once in a while a build popped up that was popular for a little bit, but there really weren't a lot of choices as far as the Chaos that were actually viable builds. Like some people kind of hung on to those old Chaos builds when they probably shouldn't have, because you just have to throw so much currency at them to make them work that you would have been so much better off picking something else. So I like these skills as an addition. Um, I don't know how playable it's going to be though. I think the idea is cool, but the thing that I don't like about the idea is the whole like let's wait to do damage. Which is kind of what this is. You hex enemies, they build up doom. You have to manually cast, and then you get to blow it up, which makes the Hex Blast pretty cool. The base damage on it isn't like something that I'm like, oh wow, that's amazing. But what we have is we have this 50% more damage with hits per 5 Doom on Hex with most Doom, and 35% more damage with ailments per 5 Doom on the Hex with the most Doom, and it can ignite, freeze, and shock. I think that that's pretty cool, and because it's going to scale a lot like that, that's going to lead up to some pretty crazy possible explosions, and it does the damage in an area of effect. So I think that this skill is going to be really cool. Like I said, the only thing I don't like about it is it's like I don't like the whole let's put damage on something and then wait to actually deal my damage. It's not really like the end goal for the game is like I want to get through stuff as quickly as possible. The flip side of that is this could wind up like, even though it does have this potential for blowing up, like chain blowing up and stuff like that, which is kind of more of what the thought I think behind it was. I feel like this could possibly wind up being like the new like boss killer because you do get 10 doom for every 1 second that something is cursed. So this could wind up being like a super potent boss killer. We will see though. I'm not going to jump in on this simply for that reason. There is that drawback of waiting. Um, so I'm going to let other people try it out. I also know that there's quite a few chaos builds that are going to be fairly popular from what I'm understanding. And if I was going to start a chaos build, I'd probably go with something safer. My pick would be the Toxic Rain. I've had a lot of talks about Toxic Rain or BV. If you're looking for a safe start, I would say Toxic Rain. The reason why is because simply like they're both viable as starters, but the thing is with Blade Vortex you have to be close to stuff. With Toxic Rain you can be at range. With the Blade Vortex, yes, you can get obliterations early, but then you're going to need 2 of the steel points, which if the build is popular, those are probably going to be pretty expensive, and you need 2 of them. The other reason is because Toxic Rain is its damage is going to be equally as good for clearing maps as it's going to be for boss killing. So that would be my take on the 2 things. If you are going to do a Toxic Rain, don't use my old Toxic Rain build. That was a build that is no longer viable now because of changes to clusters, changes to it's several old. You're going to want to look for a dot scaling attack speed if you're looking for a starter. That was also a really late game build, high investment. So not exactly what you want to be picking as a starter. So I just want to get that out there. Don't use that. If you're like, oh, Toxic Rain sounds great, and then you look and find my guide, don't play that one because it's completely different. It's a high invest late game build, and a lot of the stuff in the build doesn't even exist anymore. So it's not going to work. Um, Moving on from that, the things that I'm actually most excited about, like this sounds kind of cool. It's honestly not what I'm the most excited about because it does have that drawback of waiting, which I'm kind of like, I don't want to wait. I just want to kill stuff. Um, let's talk about these supports. This is something else I wanted to touch on that I really like the idea of. Lastly, we had probably the worst league for group play because like there was no synergy. Like if you're playing with people like in regular mapping and stuff like that, you're really kind of shooting yourself in the foot because the harvest was pretty much like that's the league mechanic and it was super amazing. It was probably like my favorite league mechanic so far because it overall. And the reason why is because first of all, I like crafting, and second of all, it made it so that everyone that played, even if they were a really casual player, would have chances to create like really good items. And I really liked that. I liked the accessibility to make it so that if people focused on farming that stuff, they would actually have the chance to get maybe not perfect items, but really nice items. Which so I liked that. But this league, I feel like they're bringing back they're giving some more dynamics to group play. We have the Frost Shield, we have the Flame Wall, and we have the Sigil of Power. These are things that like you can cast and they're going to benefit like a group because like we have damage reduction from the Frost Shield. We have added lightning damage with the Sigil of Power, which the Sigil of Power and then like the flame wall adds fire damage. Like it's stuff that you could use in a group. So the Sickle of Power specifically, I have my eye on. The reason why I have my eye on the Sickle of Power is because one of the coolest skills. There's 3 skills I was like, those look really cool. I probably want to play those. Crackling Lance was one of them. Then the redone Firestorm, I was like, that looks really cool. And then the Ice Crash were like the 3 things that I was like those look really cool. Like I would like to play those just because they're aesthetically pleasing to look at, and I like the mechanic, especially the Crackling Lance looks really really cool. But the base damage on it honestly is not that impressive when you just look at it. The intensity scaling does give it quite a bit of damage. You're talking about 100, well, like four intensity, 120% more damage. So that does boost you up a lot. Like that puts you in close to 1500, 1474 top and lightning damage. The thing is that we have to consider, because some people are like, oh, that skill looks like it doesn't have very much damage. The thing we have to consider is lightning has a lot of ability to add a lot more damage because we still have the Archmage. On top of this, they have now added the Sigil of Power, which adds even more lightning damage. Since this skill is kind of like when you're ramping it up, you're going to be sitting still to build intensity. That's going to make this run perfectly with it. It would basically be like drop the Signal of Power and then, start lasering away. So I think that that's really cool. I'm really looking forward to doing some stuff with this. I don't know if this is going to be something that I start with. I really do want to play it. I'm kind of torn between doing a smart start and, just playing with some cool looking stuff. Um, I pretty much almost always go with a smart start because I want to get a bunch of currency so I can make content, so I can, experiment with the new stuff and not be struggling all league. Probably Ice Shot is my most likely pick for starting this league because Ice Shot is going to be great for farming two things that I know would be really good for currency for me, which would be Blight and Delirium. And then obviously the Ice Shot would become my 100% Delirium build. Because that's been my 100% Delirium build, or my preferred 100% Delirium build for every league since Delirium has come out, which is what, just 2 or 3? I don't know if it was 2 ago or no, it was, yeah, for the last 2 leagues because Delirium was last league, not Harvest. It was Delirium then Harvest. So yeah, so for both Deliriums. Um, but I really like it for Delirium because it freezes the enemies and it just shreds the maps. Um, so if I go smart, that's what I'll go. The all the skills I think have a lot of potential. The Blazing Salvo I think is going to be really popular, probably with like people who like mines. This is probably going to be really popular. But I'm not really big into mines. I have played mines, not this league, not the last league, but the one before. Maybe no, I played it in Metamorph. That was the last time I played mines. Which, yeah, you get really crazy single targeted damage, and it's really good for bosses because you can build up mines, and the second they pop up, you just, basically insta kill them. It's just not. It's just really not my preferred play style. So that will probably wind up being a pretty popular bind skill. It looks really cool, but not something that's on my top list of playing. The splitting steel is getting a lot of attention, I believe. I think that's something a lot of people are going to be looking at. I'm not super like looking into it. It's not really visually pleasing for me, and it's not really exactly my play style. Maybe I'll get into it, but probably low chance that I will wind up actually playing this skill this league. We will see though. It's probably one of my lower excitements, but it is one that a lot of people are excited about. Did I cover everything on this? Oh, the Void Sphere is the other thing. This is another really cool one. The reason why I really like stuff like this that has like utility to it because this basically groups enemies, and this was something that could be used with the crackling lance, for instance, because like you throw down the void sphere in front of you, sigil underneath you, and then you start charging up, and it just pulls the stuff in, and you get your concentrated laser beam, and just melt everything that goes into the center, which obviously you don't need as much AOE if it's all being pulled into a focal point. So and there's obviously like a lot of different stuff we can use this for. Obviously, we have a lot of AOE's that are getting added. It also can be used in group play. Your groups can be. It's another basically utility type skill that's going to add more dimensions of strategy. And obviously, it's like a kind of like one of those things that you can use in a lot of builds. The only thing is that long cooldown time. We got 10-second cooldown, so it's not going to be something we can be spamming unless you get a lot of cooldown reduction. So we will see about that. But if you're playing in a group and lots of people can be casting it, maybe that will make it more viable. Um, the thing I'll say about if you want to play something like the new Firestorm or the Crackling Lance. My suggestion would be pick a viable build that you know is good, that the skills haven't been changed. Like I want to do Crackling Lance, so one of the things that I was possibly thinking was doing something like playing, like the Archmage build, trying out the Lightning Lance. If it doesn't work out that well for me, I always know that I can turn it into the Archmage brand build. That was my boss killer all of this last league, and I loved it. There haven't really been any nerfs to it. In fact, since they added this, it's actually been buffed. But I don't know. I'd have to kind of change the build because wait, 10% increased mana cost. So yeah, it increases your mana cost. So it would take a little bit of adjustment, but yes, that would definitely be a a buff to the build. So we will see about that. But that something like that. There's other stuff like the Inquisitor Spark builds have been really popular and are viable. I know there's some pretty good starter formulas for those, like Spark Orb of Storms, Lightning Brand is not a bad combo for that. And if you get the right stuff, they can wind up with some really crazy damage and be 100% delirium viable. So that would be like a safe way, like if I wanted to try out Crackling Lance, that I could do that. The idea, one of my friends likes to play in my community that I've been playing with for a while, likes to, at least like 3 or 4 leagues, I think, likes to play or has played Freezing Pulse for the last couple of leagues, and he likes that. He'd always wind up rolling away from it though, so now he's kind of hoping that the Ice Crash on Totems will be a good transition to go to from the Freezing Pulse as you're moving into late game, which would be another kind of good option because it would be something that could carry you in, which same Ascendancy, Hierophant, you would be able to roll into something like, Spark or Stormbrand. I think that's what he did with his last league, was rolled it into Stormbrand as a boss killer once the Freezing Pulse were no longer doing what he needed. But hopefully this league, with the addition of the Ice Crash and the 200% more damage um, final stage damage, maybe that will make it boss kill viable and stuff like that. So we will have to see about that. Let's switch back over to the other patch notes. Okay, so we've covered curses, new skill gems, talked a little bit about some ideas to get my input about stuff. The league mechanic obviously is going to be kind of something that will be more covered once I have some experience trying it out. I always try out the league mechanic, give my 2 cents on that. Once we get into it, we do have some changes. The discharge looks pretty cool. A lot of people are complaining that it doesn't look very cool. They made it a lot more powerful, but a lot of people are complaining it really doesn't look that cool. Honestly, just being real, man. We got some small other changes in here. These are mostly just changes to the curses marks. Um, those are probably the biggest changes. If you have your builds picked out, I would definitely suggest going and making sure that like your tree hasn't been changed. At this point, you can figure that stuff out. Um, we got some small nerfs to the assassin ascendancy. zero point 0.5. Well, that's actually a pretty big nerf. 0.5%. Basically, crit chance, crit multiplier debuffs. That was really the only ascendancy that got that big of a nerf. Necromancer, Mistress of Sacrifice, to 50% reduced effect on you. Okay, so half that got nerfed. Okay, so they both got the same thing. Probably because it was just like OP on autocast, like the autocasting tons of heals. I don't know. That's probably, I'm not completely sure, but that's probably what that's about. So that's the main stuff. We got some small changes in cluster jewels. Not as big as like we had like last league. Like we had like major nerfs to cluster jewels last league. It looks like we got some small debuffs on a couple things. Not as big of a deal. I mean, obviously these are the only changes they're putting in. Unique item changes. The Watcher's Eye got nerfed. Watcher's Eye got some nerf. Uh, so yeah, there's that. Um, I think those are the biggest changes. Obviously, we can't really go over all the unique changes because there's going to be a lot of stuff changing with uniques. Um, I'm not going to cover every single item. I just kind of wanted to change to cover the most significant stuff and the stuff that I'm interested in, that I'm excited about, or not so excited about, or the main things that you should know about. And I think that's pretty much been covered. I don't want to drag this video out too long. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions, comments, go ahead and leave them. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thanks for watching. Peace.